Welcome, everybody, to part 3 of 6 in the sales training series. The topic today is how to convert leads into sales. I am your host, Nikki Rausch, sales maven. Entrepreneurs and business owners hire me to teach you how to sell in an authentic way without being salesy, aggressive, or pushy, so that you're able to build rapport, connect with people in a long-lasting relationship, and ultimately close more deals. That's what I do. My background is 25 years of sales experience, plus I am master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. That is the study of communication. I have over 1,200 classroom hours in NLP study, so it's a big part of what I do and what I teach and how I show up with my clients. So in this 6-part series, if you're wondering what the other 2 parts are, you haven't quite, maybe you're just joining for the first time. So if you would like to catch part 1 and part 2, and of course the parts that are coming after, the preceding parts, you can do that by visiting yoursalesmaven.com/free. So it's yoursalesmaven.com/free. You'll also be able to access your worksheets that will support you in your learning in the topics that we're going to go through. So let's dive in to converting consultations into, now I'm changing the title, how to convert leads into sales. Let's dive into that. Now, if you have your worksheet, it looks like this. You're also welcome to post questions and comments in the chat here, so I'll be addressing those at the end. But this is what your worksheet looks like, and you'll be able to fill in the blanks as we go. You're also going to get some script, some really important language for you to have. So if you are watching this on the replay, pause it now, go get your worksheet, and hopefully those of you who are watching it live, you have this with you. Okay, so we're back on the staircase. Those of you know that I teach sales as if it's a selling staircase, not a sales funnel, because once you're in a conversation with somebody, you're on the staircase and your job is to move them up the stairs, right? And the way you do that, we talk about it in part 1, is by issuing invitations. So now we are on the curiosity step. How do you create curiosity about who you are and what you do? And it's really learning how to tailor your answers and your conversation to what's most interesting to the person that you're in conversation with. So curiosity is about making statements that actually elicit somebody wanting some follow-up information, them wanting to ask you questions, wanting to know more. Also, in this step in the selling staircase is an opportunity for you to recognize buying signals. I'm not going to do a deep dive into buying signals today because there's a ton of content available on my website. I wrote my 2nd book about buying signals. So there's a lot of places for you to go and access buying signal information. But just really quickly, I will touch and say, buying signals are verbal and nonverbal cues that people give that indicate interest. When you can create curiosity, you're much more likely to get a buying signal. Once you get a buying signal, that's your opportunity to invite people to the next step in the process, which is discovery. We are going to talk about discovery in part 4. So know that that is coming in the 6-part series. But in the curiosity phase, it is so important that you open conversation. So I want to actually give you some language here. When you are meeting somebody, and in order for you to create curiosity, you might not really know much about them yet. So let's ask a really simple question that allows for you to get to know them. So again, you're able to tailor your answers to what's most interesting to them. So here's the language for you. Just ask somebody, is it okay to ask about you and what you do? When you say, is it okay to ask? Most of the time, you'll watch people's body language and they're already giving you like a yes. Like they're already nodding their head, even though they don't know what you're going to ask yet. So is it okay to ask about you and what you do? it's like a really nice invitation versus the person who comes up and they're like, tell me what you do for a living, tell me about your business. It comes across a little aggressive and it can make people feel a little defensive. Like now they feel like, oh, now I feel like I'm on stage and I've got to like be on, right? And that isn't going to help the rapport. So we want to make it really kind. We want to make it really soft. Like, is it okay to ask about you and what you do? This is something that you could do when you're at networking events. This is something that you can do at conferences. I just came back from an awesome conference. This is something that you can do when you are standing in line with people. Be willing to put yourself out there and do it. You will open yourself into really great conversations with really amazing people. Certainly you can do this at any social gathering. So I know, the holidays are coming. There will be holiday parties. This is an opportunity for you to use that there and really learn how to start to dive into this curiosity piece. So once the person answers, your job is to just pause and just wait. So that's the first fill in the blank here. Wait to see if they then ask you the same question. So this is about reciprocity. A lot of times you will ask somebody a question. They will ask you the same question back. Now you have a little bit permission to talk about what you do. Now on the worksheet I have in there for you that if they don't ask you the question, maybe you just continue on with the conversation. But if you're finding that you go to events and all you do is ask questions and let other people talk about their business and you leave and you think, I never even talked about my business one time, you are missing out on opportunities to earn ideal clients because they didn't even get to hear what you do and how you might serve them in some way. So this is your job to take a little bit of control in the conversation and be willing to open the door to share about yourself and your business. I had a conversation with a client. I mentioned I just came back from this amazing conference. It was a women's conference. It's called Biz Chicks Live. Highly recommend it to women business owners. It was fantastic. And one of my clients that was in the room at this conference, there were 140 women there, had shared with me that she's finding that she's really good at asking questions and she was struggling to talk about her business. And so this can sometimes be a mindset issue that I don't know if you've heard this before, but the person who asks the questions in a conversation holds the power. And in order to have effective sales conversations, there needs to be a balance of power. Like it can't just be, if you're asking the questions all the time, then the client or the other person, it creates an imbalance. And so we need to balance things out. Not one person should ever hold all of the power in a conversation. It creates a mismatch. It will cause people to go and buy from your competitors. They will look for somebody else where the conversation feels more flowy. It feels more, reciprocal back and forth. And it can be kind of awkward if people can feel like you're putting them on the witness stand. It's also a really great way to put up a barrier about you. If you don't let people ask you questions, you can come across very guarded. And it can be vulnerable, right? To be the person who's being asked questions. So this is why you need to open the door to let the other person in a conversation who may not be that great at asking questions, you might need to open the door a little bit for them. Make it easy, especially if they feel in any way a little intimidated by you or they're not sure how to ask you a question. So here's some language you might say to someone. You might say, it's been so interesting to learn about you and your business. And I'm just wondering if you'd be interested to hear a little bit about me and what I do. Now, what you do with your voice here is really critical because that question can potentially come off as rather shaming. Right? So we never want to shame anybody in a conversation. We never want to make anybody feel like, oof, I just got corrected in some way, or like, oh, I should have been asking that already. So you want to be really careful with this. So what you do with your voice is going to be critical. Okay. So notice that when I make this this statement or ask this question back, like, it's been so interesting to learn about you and your business. I'm just wondering, notice my shoulders even come up, my body language changes, I divert my gaze. So I'm just wondering if you might be interested to learn a little bit about me. My head tilts sideways. So there's a lot that's going on here body language wise. I teach a lot of this in my sales trainings about how to divert your gaze, how to look away, how to change your body language enough to send the message that I'm not shaming. I'm just wondering if you're interested. I'm legitimately curious if you'd be interested to learn about me and what I do. And I ask it like it's a real question. So I curl my voice up at the end of it, and then I wait. Okay? Now, that's again if they don't ask you the question, but more than likely they're going to reciprocate and say, tell me a little bit about you and what do you do? And this is when it's your turn to share. So I want you to ask yourself before you then answer, because now we've heard about them and what they do. I want you to ask yourself, what do I already know about this person? That's the fill in the blank on your worksheet. What do I already know about this person? And then you're going to tailor your answer to what you suspect may be interesting to them or somewhat relevant to them in some way. Okay. So if you find out that they are somebody, and I actually have some examples here on the handout for you, some examples of what I might do in a conversation. So if I'm talking to somebody and I know that they offer some consulting services in their business, one of the things I might do when they ask, like, tell me about you and your business, I might say, service-based providers hire me to refine their discovery and consultation process so that they can quickly identify who their ideal clients are and then how to increase their overall close rate on those calls. And then I wait. And I wait to see if they have a follow-up question to that. Okay? So I'm just trying to tease it a little bit. I'm not trying to word vomit. Like, this is not an opportunity for me to, take 10 minutes to explain what I do. I have a story of one time I got on a call with somebody and I asked her the question, tell me a little bit about your background and what you do. And I'm not joking because I time this stuff and I love how people engage. I'm so fascinated by the way that we interact socially with people. And again, this is part of my studies. And it took her 40 minutes. She said, so in the 80s, and then she went through every single thing that had happened to her up until present day. It took her 40 minutes to answer that question. Now, at the end of the 40 minutes, I couldn't wait to get off the phone with her because I just felt like I'm afraid to ask her another question because she word vomited all over me and it felt gross. And I was in no way interested in ever having another conversation with this woman, even though she was nice, but she couldn't just give me a simple answer. So your answers to the question of like, tell me a little bit about you and what you do, be aware that they're asking a very simple question. You should have a pretty straightforward answer. If you have more than a 3-sentence response, you're starting to get into a word vomit situation and it's time to refine because a conversation should be back and forth. Both people should be speaking and listening, right? It's not just an opportunity for you to go into a pitch that will turn people off. As a matter of fact, in the curiosity phase, you should not be pitching. You're just giving them enough information to see if it piques their interest and if they have some follow-up questions. Because follow-up questions a lot of times come as in the form of buying signals. Okay? So now that's if I'm talking to a consultant. Here's another example. If I'm talking to somebody who sells product, I would have a different answer to who am I and what do I do? So this is not your elevator pitch, okay? So I might say to somebody who sells product, I might say, businesses hire me to show them how to increase their average sale price per customer so they're able to ramp up their revenue quicker and build long-term customer loyalty. And then I wait. and I see what kind of a follow-up question they have. So I'm just, again, looking to pique interest for us to start to have real conversation. Now, if somebody says like, oh, that's nice, so tell me about the weather, right? They're probably not that interested in what I do. So I may use another curiosity creating like drop at some point, but for the most part, I'm going to go on with the conversation. I don't stop the person and say, wait, that was my answer to see if you wanted to know more about my business. So now I just am going to tell you more about my business. Don't do that. That will really turn people off. So we want to make it an engaging answer. So think about how you would answer this question. Tell me a little bit about you and what you do. How would you answer that question? And I would encourage you to actually write down a few answers. You need to have them on the ready. And again, you're going to ask yourself, what do I already know about this person? You might not know a lot, but you do know some things, right? You know where you are, like where the event is, where you're meeting this person. If you're in person, you can see things about them. You can hear things about them of what they're sharing. Pay attention to their body language. And then answer about something you think might be interested. So if I'm talking to somebody who sells real estate, I have a different answer for them versus somebody who sells supplements, or somebody who maybe is a therapist. Totally different answers for all three. So your last fill in the blank here is the intent of your response should be to leave the door open for the other person to ask a follow-up question. Now, if you are familiar with my work, you know that I teach one of the main ways to create curiosity is to think about the difference between how you call a dog versus how you call a cat. Now, what I mean by this is when you think about somebody who is calling a dog, you've heard this, go to a park and you hear people trying to get their dog's attention. They use this really like high-pitched, aggressive, like, come here, boy, come here, right? Dogs respond to that. They love that. They're like, ooh, something's fun might be going on. I want to come, I'm going to run to my owner. Unfortunately, too many people are really excited about what they do and what they sell that when you show up in a conversation, you show up with dog calling energy, and it's never okay. People reach out to me all the time and they're like, yeah, Nikki, I know you say don't show up with dog calling energy, but that's just my style. That's just me. So people just have to learn to deal with it. And the fact of the matter is some people will be fine with it. Most people will not. And they will avoid you in conversation. They will try to get out of the conversation with you as quick as possible. So instead, this is this idea of how do you call a cat? And how you call a cat is a little bit of like, here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty. Because we want people to come to us. Now, a cat hears that and they might be like, what? Tell me more. And lean in, right? They want to check it out. So your answers to your questions should have a little bit of here, kitty, kitty to them. So this is back to, avoid the word vomit. Respond in a way that might be interesting, that allows the person to ask you a follow-up question. So right now, one of the ones I encourage people to have an answer to is a very simple, basic question that we all get asked like multiple times a week. How are you? Right? Have you been asked, how are you this week? Probably. And what do you say? Do you have a very generic answer like, oh, I'm fine? Or maybe you have like a fun answer like, oh, I'm living the dream. And unfortunately, none of those types of answers allow for somebody to ask you a follow-up question. So right now, if somebody said, how are you? I might say, oh, I'm fantastic. I just came back from speaking at an amazing event for women business owners. This allows for somebody to go, oh, what did you speak about? Oh, you're a speaker. Tell me about that. Or what was the conference? Or, what kind of women show up there? Now I get to talk a little bit more about who I am and what I do. So think about what is your answer to two questions now I've given you. Like, Tell me a little bit about you and what you do, or even just something as simple as how are you? You want to have a little bit of a here, kitty, kitty response. Allow the other person to ask you a follow-up question, because now we're in conversation. And again, if you have a response and the other person doesn't ask you a follow-up question, don't stop them and say like, hey, wait, I just gave you a here, kitty, kitty response and you didn't ask me any follow-up question. That will break rapport. Okay, so none of that. Go on in the conversation and recognize that when you have these responses, if nobody's asking you follow-up questions, you need to tweak your response. You need to adjust what you say. I work with clients on this all the time. Some of my clients that are in my group coaching program, we practice their here kitty kitty responses. Sometimes we practice, actually I had multiple clients that we practiced this response before they went to this conference. What were they going to say when people said, how are you, or what do you do? So that they could have real conversations. And many of them actually were reporting to me at the end of the day, like, I got to talk about my business so much more because of my responses to these questions. So I encourage you to think about it. And if you're struggling with that, that would be something that we could work on together. So ways to work with me are strategy sessions. I work with private VIP clients. I have a group coaching program, access to me in a private group where you can post questions. And we work on these things all the time. So I would invite you to do that if you're struggling to come up with answers to your questions that allow for people to ask you their follow-up question. Okay, if you're not getting follow-up questions to your answers, it's time to adjust. It's time to make a shift. Do something different. You know that saying, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So we want to change that if you're not talking enough about your business, because creating curiosity is what leads you to the next step in the process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any questions, or if you want to share your here kitty kitty, if you have a here kitty kitty response and you'd like some feedback on it, go ahead and type it in to the chat. Know that part 4 is coming, and part 4 we're going to be talking about the number one mistake that you're making on your discovery calls that are causing you to lose business. So please come back for part 4 and check that out. And now I'm going to see if there are any questions or comments for anybody in the chat here. How to convert leads into sales. All right, so you do not have to register for each part separately. Once you've registered, you will get a link that takes you to the page where all of the worksheets are. We're sending these links out weekly. So just register once, and then once you have access to that page, you might want to save that link for you so you can just go back to that link each time you want to download a worksheet or you want to rewatch this training. Oh yeah, and make sure that you are scrolling down. So it starts at the top, week 1, week 2, week 3. So if you just go there and you only see week 1, you just need to scroll down on the page. All right, any questions, comments? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna say going once. Going twice. All right, so I see a question. What's a good way to remind yourself to make that change on your here kitty kitty? Ooh, this is a great question. So Eileen, what I would say is consider adding this to your calendar. Like I have a client who has here kitty kitty Monday at 8 a.m. on her calendar. She thinks of her answer for the week. And every time somebody asks her, how are you? She answers with her here kitty kitty. Unless she tries it like 3 times and gets no follow-up questions, and then she'll tweak it a little bit. Now, if somebody's asking you what you do, you probably only need to come up with that answer one time, except for that I do want you answering it in the way of like, what do you know about that person? So tweaking it just a bit. So if you're talking to a busy professional who wants to You think this person maybe wants like quick and easy, possibly, right? Busy professionals a lot of times want quick and easy. Your answer might be tailored to how you have products that allow for people to make quick and easy meals. Or if you're talking to somebody who obviously loves to cook, loves to eat, you might be talking about how you have these really amazing products that allow for people to, trying to think of how to phrase this, that allows for people to really try out new things. Like maybe if they're somebody who wants to try new things, and again, based on their answer to the question, or they're somebody who loves gadgets, right? Those are perfect clients for you. People who love gadgets or always want to have the right gadget, somebody who is very specific, somebody who wants the right gadget for each application. Those would also be really great clients for you. Somebody who prefers quality, you would talk about the quality of your product versus the gadget aspect of it. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but let me know if I did, or if you have a follow-up to what I said. Thank you, Mona. I'm so glad that that you like the information. I appreciate that so much from you. Yes, the Monday thing. Eileen, you like the Monday thing. Get it in for the week. Yes. Holidays are coming for you, Eileen. This is the perfect time for you to be playing with your Here Kitty Kitty responses. Perfect time for you to be tailoring your answers right now around what's current. So what's current is the holidays coming. So think about what you might say that piques people's interest. You know, one of the things about holidays a lot of times is there's gift giving. So right now you might be also talking about gift giving and how, like if somebody says, how are you? You might say, oh my gosh, I'm fantastic. It has been so fun to help people check people off their list for gifts. So it's been a really popular week for this particular item. And people would probably be like, well, gift giving, tell me more about that. Or like, oh, what is that? Don't say item. I'm saying item because I can't think of a name of your specific product, but say something like whatever your new hot product is, say that. Let's see. So Sandra says, I have generally felt that my profession introduces the aspect of potential shame. So I share how etiquette came into being, a bit of a history lesson. Okay, Sandra, I understand. If people are, you never ever want to shame anybody. So you want to be really careful about your response. So a couple months ago, I was at an event as a speaker and they had like a opening reception, and a woman came up. She was also a speaker. And I asked her, tell me a little bit about you and what you do. And she said, I help speakers like you who aren't very good at what they do. Everything else she said after that, I wasn't interested in, because I was like, hey, you've never seen me speak. You don't know me. You don't know if I am not very good at what I do. And honestly, I don't think that was her intention, but the way that she answered the question felt shaming. So I think, Sandra, in this particular case, you wouldn't say I help people like you. You would say that you help people that sometimes find themselves in a situation where they might be a little bit nervous, but by having etiquette, or by having the right knowing what the proper etiquette is, it builds confidence. So that isn't a shaming thing, that's a positive. So how can you form it in a positive for the other person? And again, anytime you're going to say a negative, you divert your gaze and you act as if you're talking about somebody else who's standing in the conversation who's not even there, right? You never make the example about the person that you're in conversation with if there's any hint of like it could be taken as a negative or could feel shaming in some way. Like, we want to be really careful about that. Eileen already knows what product that she's going to be focusing on for the holiday season, the whipped cream maker. Don't we all need that? Yes, right? If you're making fun desserts and you want a little whipped cream on top. get a hold of Eileen Paul. All right, Sandra says the story lands to minimize the issue of shame, and it's pretty fascinating. Most people like it. Hey, if what you're doing is working, please keep doing it, right? If you know that it elicits follow-up questions, people want to engage with you deeper, they want to know more about how to work with you, then yes, by all means, keep that going. That's really important. I love the support that you guys are giving for each other here. Eileen's got nice things to say about Sandra, of course. Hey, Sandra, somebody is interested in knowing more about what you do. So Mona and Sandra, please connect with each other. Here's a potential, that, by the way, is a huge buying signal. So Mona says, Sandra, I'd love to know more. I'm a therapist and coach. Therapy has stigma and shame to it. So if there's maybe now that I read this, so if you mean that you would like to know more about what Sandra does, please connect with Sandra. Mona, if you're wondering about shame or stigma, okay, so I'm just going to take that as that what you want, Mona, here is when you have people that feel some stigma around therapy and or coaching, right? You say therapy and coaching, you would, again, you would want to use the response and you would talk about results. Okay, so talk about people who have struggled with something that maybe they've kept private for a long time, work with you to overcome those things so that they can achieve higher results in their life, or they can have deeper connections, or if there's a relationship piece to it. So whatever it is that is the result, Mona, I would focus on the result versus the actual, like, you know, people who are depressed or people who are ashamed of themselves or people who haven't been able to get over something in their life. I would focus more on the results than the actual work itself. That's what I would say to that. Yes. Okay. So you guys are going to make some connection. I love that. All right. Any last question, comment? Going once? Going twice? All right, well then I will see you for part 4, which is the #1 mistake you're making on discovery calls. Please come back for that. You are welcome to comment below with anything that didn't get answered on this live. And also, if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that. Go and click subscribe to the Sales Maven YouTube channel. I'd certainly appreciate that. You are welcome to reach out with questions, comments, put them there. And thank you so much for taking part today. Appreciate it.